Good morning. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to all of you joining us live here on Instagram and over on YouTube. Welcome, all of you. Still can't believe it's June, but today we are here for our Natural Health News live show. I'm going to share with you a bit of news, and then most importantly, I'm going to share with you one of my favorite all-time combos of immune boosting, immune supportive, immune modulating, immune regulating powerhouse. Literally, it's a power punch of herbals all in one liquid. So I'm excited to share that with you today. And welcome for all of you. Tell me where you guys are tuning in from. We have Kay Jefferson over on Instagram or over on YouTube. And we've got quite a community here on Instagram. So welcome all of you. I want to share with you where we're at in the world and then in the US, and then break out some statistics and information that I think is really important to know, especially given all of the things that are happening right now. So the world, we're at 6.395 million cases. The US is at 1.869 million. New York City is still on target to open on the 8th. So next week, they are still on target. New Jersey is at 161,000. Illinois is at 122. That's an area we've been focusing in on, as well as California is at 115. And Massachusetts has put up over 1,000 cases in a matter of a day. So, that's a matter of a day. So that's quite problematic up there. I also want to note some other important details. Michigan, they have lifted or are planning on lifting the restrictions. Excuse me, they actually have. Let me notate that. They've lifted the restrictions of the stay-at-home order. And some other areas that we're going to monitor: Maryland's at 54, Georgia's at 48, and Virginia's at 46. And I think one of the things that we're monitoring in the COVID world is Brazil. Particularly, Brazil has had their highest daily increase yesterday. They're at 558,000 cases. They had over 29,000 cases in one day. They surpassed their highest death toll in a day at 1,200, almost 1,300 cases. Their death toll is at 31,000. So we are definitely expecting them to surpass 1 million by the middle of early July, middle of July, and it's possible that they'll double the deaths, which is insane. And Russia's had another 9,000 case increase at 432. And speaking of that, Moscow is reopening. Hong Kong has implemented social and travel restrictions with the cluster. They have 9 kind of little pockets of outbreaks, or 9 parties in other areas. So they're clustering, or they're going in lockdown and more restrictive travel and social distancing to minimize that. Australia has noted that they have had the first recession in over 29 years because of COVID. And Australia was not nearly hit as hard as this was. We have a lot of Australian viewers here, and I actually have a friend that I met when I was teaching in Japan. She and her family live in Australia, so I see a lot of her posts, and they were in lockdown just like we were. Actually, I think for a little bit of a longer period of time, at least in Georgia. And on tap, I'm almost done with it. You can see it's stuck to the wall of my tea. This is my stress relief tea. Feeling a little stressed out. India has a cyclone that has hit the eastern coast, and Mumbai evacuated COVID patients. So they evacuated 100,000 people, and they had to evacuate one of the hospitals that was a COVID heavy hospital. India has surpassed 200,000 cases, and they are not yet at the peak. They're expecting their peak to be a few weeks away. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on here in the US. We have and are seeing a lot of, I consider it productive, peaceful protesting. in areas and cities all over the US, and the world is joining in on it. So I'm seeing reports of other communities, like France had a case of brutality, police brutality, and they are protesting in honor of that individual and support of just globally having some sense of normalcy and peace when it comes to the treatment of individuals who have just different coloring in their skin or darker melanin. That is the only difference that we all possess. All of the other things, we are equal and the same, except for just a little melanin. And some of us tan up, and so we can look a little darker or browner. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings with all the same goals and desires and deserve the right treatment and proper treatment. With that being said, we are anticipating a possible flux and increase in COVID cases. We're not sure if the protests will yield to an earlier second wave. It's all to remain to be seen. But I want to notate, we've had 5,600 protest arrests. And in that, individuals are often put in either like a wagon or a police cruiser. You have individuals that are housed in these vehicles collectively. So individuals who don't know each other in closed space, in the jails, the holding facilities, and the jails until they get bailed out, which, by the way, there are certain bail donations you can make. I saw one in Pennsylvania for Philly protesters who get arrested. But there is a challenge here because that's close proximity. The other major challenge, when the police are responding in quite violent manners, in a violent way, using tear gas and pepper spray, that actually, and the epidemiologists and the scientists are speaking up about this. Pepper spray and the use of tear gas actually causes more coughing, more tears, more respiratory particles and droplets to be dispersed. Now, ordinarily in an outdoor setting, you're totally fine, but with enclosed space and thousands of individuals all within, 2 or 3 blocks, and they're walking the width of a street, there's just a higher transmission potential. We don't know what that is. We don't have any of the science behind it, but pretty insane when it comes to the fact that right now, many states are ill-equipped for the populations that are actively protesting. So we're seeing a multitude of ages and we have men and women in different socioeconomic backgrounds, men and women of different colors, and coming together in a peaceful way. And part of the challenge here is it also highlights the disparities we see in the healthcare system and the disparities we are seeing across the board for those communities that are vulnerable and at risk, and they don't have access to testing capacity. I want to make a note of this because I think this is really critical. Very few states right now, governors, local leaders, are having any type of policies or I'd say public communication about how do we have protesters speak their rights and stand up for justice in a way that's healthy for them and the safety of others during a global pandemic. Like, this is the craziest just scenario where we have a global pandemic and we have groups of people coming together. And in the blending of that, you have we know historically with COVID right now, 24% of the deaths, the American deaths, are African Americans. Georgia, and I don't know how substantially accurate this data is because we've since found out that Georgia's only reporting hospital-based tests in the COVID count. So we know Georgia we're skewed. We just don't have 48,000 cases. We have a lot more than that. But of the cases that they've recorded, 85% of our cases are African Americans who are in the hospitals. They have tested positive with it. They're on ventilation or in ICU, and they're disproportionately hit harder. And there's a whole assortment. I've had many of you ask why. And I've been digging around and assessing potential reasons. And this just goes back long term. So we have public and social policies that have left communities of color more susceptible to a lack of public health access. I mean, the fact that right now, many states, and I don't know the number because I haven't had that published, but many states do not have testing capacity for communities. And for instance, in Atlanta, our mayor, Mayor Bottoms, she has recommended that if you have protested, she recommends that it's a good idea for you to get a COVID test. Okay, so here's the challenge. We have communities that are at higher risk. We know there are underlying health conditions that tend to be more disproportionately affecting communities of color. And we also know that the communities of color don't have testing access, that there's not accessibility to these labs and testing resources. So it's a double-edged sword. And being in the health and wellness world, this is really important for us to be aware of. And then we need to have our local communities take action. But the reality here is that if we have a mayor like our wonderful mayor in Atlanta is highlighting people should go get tested who've protested, how do they do that? So that's a question we all need to ask, and we need to even make it further and call, be active. If this is inciting any type of anger, frustration, don't hold it in. For any of you, we can be active, and we can also be active in ways where we, ordinarily I'd be out there with all the folks protesting, but we can't. I have a vulnerable individual in my household. One of the things that I read more specifically last night was that communities of color often will have multi generational communities in their homes, especially in some of the bigger major urban cities. And so you have maybe some younger folks that are going to be out protesting, and yet they might have a grandmother or uncle living with them. And it's just one of these vicious cycle elements. So there's several things to note here. One, for any of you who may be protesting or know friends and family who are actively protesting, it is encouraged that they wear not just your normal like cotton mask. We need to go higher grade. They need to have N95s, and these are accessible. I actually had some arrive that I had ordered about 2.5 weeks ago. It obviously takes time, but if you do plan on having any outbound activities, it's not a bad idea to have these. I will get these accessible for you. I have sites that I order from professionally that you guys can too as well. But one of the things that we need to be aware of is the N95s and the K95s should be the masks that are being worn, especially with the gassing, tear gassing, and pepper spray. The other thing is not sunglasses or reading glasses or any type of we need full on lockdown eye protection. And I didn't grab mine this morning. So it becomes really critical that they're protecting the orifices, the nose, the mouth, and the eyes for a multitude of reasons. One, pepper spray and tear gas is horrid, and it's just absolutely barbaric. I can't even imagine that we're doing this and, shooting bullets, rubber bullets. There was an image. I have a feeling it was not photoshopped, but it was of a gentleman with his daughter on his shoulders, and they're facing a police squad. And one of the gentlemen has got one of the rubber bullet guns aiming at the dad, with the daughter wearing a superhero mask on his shoulders. It's just insane to me. So, I do want to highlight already, in one of the protests in Tulsa, an Oklahoma State University linebacker tested positive. So he was out protesting, and since then he tested positive. We also are probably going to see a whole bunch of other folks that are experiencing that, potentially asymptomatic or symptomatic. But eye protection is definitely beneficial at any point. So we have a question, Mar from Famalfi, is eye protection beneficial when flying? Yes. Okay. So flying any type of enclosed space, if you're going to ride a train, a tram at the airport, a plane, if you're going to get on a bus, if you're going to get enclosed with other people where there's a circulation of air, And there is one small study that China had released, and I don't say China, the government, it was a university. They had analyzed that one individual had tested positive in a restaurant. The individuals around them, they weren't anywhere in a close sphere, but they had I articulated through contact tracing that the individual in the restaurant is the source of the infection for the other 6 or 7 people. And so there's definitely some air components, airflow. I don't have any specific studies that have been released that I've seen that have come out. But, definitely one of the things that, the protesting is definitely risky. So Kathy Davis says, why put yourself at risk when you are at higher risk? No regard for yourself or your family. I'm sure the numbers of COVID will rise. Well, honestly, it's much deeper than just an individual risk right now. And that is one of the things that I think we have to understand is that there are years and years and decades and, 400 plus years of brutality to certain populations. And if we are not a part of that population, it's easy for many people to just make blank statements saying, oh, you're putting yourselves at risk. And it's true, but you can do things to minimize your risk and still be actively engaged in our First Amendment right. And I value that right. That's what allows me to get on with you guys here on Instagram and YouTube. Granted, YouTube does censor because they've identified that that platform doesn't have the same kind of fundamental federal rights, constitutionality rights. But it is absolutely critical that we support our fellow brothers and sisters of multiple colors who are out there. And I say multiple colors because brown and black skin, yellow skin, red skin, we have a multitude of racial community members, individuals of other ethnicities who are not treated fairly. And so it's one of these things, there will always be a risk when anybody protests, especially at this level. We have a heightened sensitivity, heightened nerves. We have a huge amount of the population. Over 40 million people are unemployed. We're dealing with something that is so much more than just, oh, don't go out there, you're going to put yourself at risk and your family at risk. But I will say that, protesters who do have contact with family members need to take an assessment. And it can be a family decision. And there may very well be families that are saying, you know what, it's worth the risk. But if they're going to do that, we need to make sure that we, as a global community, support them because they have every right to be angry. We all do. And they have every right to voice their opinions. What we need to do for public safety's sake, and this is what I'm frustrated with. You look at, I don't even know the number. It's like 38 or 39, probably more than that, major cities that there are protests. And what have the mayors, what have the state and local officials, what have the governors said in terms of, okay, if you're going to protest, let's have you do this. Everybody should wear a mask. You should wear goggles and protection. There should be some sort of communication about what type of public safety measures we need to be taking. We already know the CDC is an unreliable source and they are not going to step up and, make any statements because there's a lot of bureaucratic influence. But it's definitely one of the things that we need to know. We need to know that there's a reason and we need to support that. But also, we're also challenged. And so Christine says, wish we knew the real numbers of asymptomatic cases. And this is at the end of the day, if we look at how botched this whole process has been in the US, if we had way more testing taken place, if we had actively engaged in targeting and getting out to the underserved communities and populations, the inner cities and the communities of multiple ethnicities, if we had gone out there and set up testing centers, we could better be equipped to limit the spread, but we're not. And so, it's not right to put the onus on the protesters in that capacity, but we have to make sure we equip people with with information and knowledge. And that is what I can offer, from my office in my home, because we're in lockdown, because we have a family member at risk, and I have a young child that I'm not going to even put him in any type of risk. We're in a different day. We are in an active pandemic, and we're also in an active community of civil unrest and frustration. And we just have to be well equipped to keep ourselves, our family members, and our community safe. And so goggles, clothes protection. I've had community members here in YouTube email me and message saying that, Home Depot and Lowe's are back to stocking some of the protective goggles. The N95, I'll give you some access points where you can legitimately get them online very easy. And I'll look for more today, but it's definitely important that we address this. So, and Kathy makes a good point. You can make a change with voting and education. Walking the street has not made a change in the past. I'd actually disagree with that. But this is a bad situation, just making it worse with that. What else is going on in the world? Walking has, you think about all of the different marches, they have often been triggers for change. So there's a multitude of resources that we all have. I think all of us have cell phones and should be contacting our local, state, and federal leaders. If this triggers you, and I don't want to say trigger, if this incites a frustration and anger, you look at these images and you want to break out in crying because it's absolutely insane that we are dealing with this, then that is another opportunity for you, another avenue. There's a lot of different ways for us to implement, but definitely voting for sure is critical. The other thing that's critical is the census. And I haven't really mentioned this a whole lot, but if you haven't taken the census, you can do so online. I'll post the links. Let me just write this down. But the census also takes an assessment of the community needs. How many individuals are in our community that need hospital care? And so those are things that legislatively, budgetarily, we arm and equip our communities with resources. And K Diddy 44, protesting has helped. It's why police now wear body cams, and that is absolutely true. So there's a multitude of different tactics and ways for us to implement change. Education, that is not my forte. I have a lot of thoughts on that. I'm not even going to go down that road, but it's a lot easier to make that broad statement, but it's so comprehensive. And I actually grew up in a community in St. Pete. I was bused to a South Side elementary school, and I loved it. It was the best elementary school ever, and I had a ton of friends from all different ethnicities, and was just really exposed culturally early on in my early education, but also was very aware that I had more privilege than my fellow classmates, and with that, there's just so much more. And if you guys are interested in education and things like that, there's a documentary actually about my school, our county that I grew up in. There were changes at the school board, and this is where voting counts. The school board literally allocated funds for the North County children. And there's definitely a major racial divide in North County, South County, Pinellas County, Florida, if you're curious. We there were several Department of Education lawsuits, just horrid treatment of children. They were arresting 5 and 6-year-olds, Mirandizing them with scan-on sheets and having the kids circle yes and no, complete violation of civil rights. Education is problematic, to say the least. And it just goes much deeper in terms of, homes where people can live, accessibility to education, resources, we grade the schools on testing. I mean, it's so global. Re-educating here, Jeff Seymour, and I know now who Jeff Seymour is. Hi. Re-educating is necessary. It starts in our homes. Let's raise kids that embrace everyone. Life, like we are going to judge, let's do it based on character, not the color of your skin. Absolutely. Okay, so Naomi asked the question, is the spread more difficult in an outside environment? Typically, yes. Okay, so the spread that we have seen isolated, and there was a MIT lab that measured the trajectory and the not transportation, but like the volume of a cough. And we know a cough or sneeze goes out, literally sprays out volume of droplets up to anywhere from 23 to 27 feet. We can do that outside, but then the wind kind of disperses it. So we have the environmental factors of wind and humidity, air density, and things like that. Now, we also witnessed in DC insane military use of a helicopter. I don't know if you guys caught this, but there was a helicopter that literally employed tactics that we would employ against enemies, okay, against our own civil, obedient protesters. And the helicopter hovered 40 feet above the people on the ground. And that changes everything. So if you got and literally it was breaking branches, it was turning up all this dust and stuff. That is like a cyclone. So you cough into a cyclone. I don't even know what that looks like. And I hope we never see anything like that again. I have a feeling that we probably will see more stuff like that. And it's definitely a complicated situation. Let's see. Monica said you would walk if it happened to you or your child. At this point, for us right now, we're trying to keep Brian safe. So we're going to do everything in-house. Morrison Monica says, I raised my children to not even know color. I have friends of all cultures and backgrounds. Even in Taiwan, my children didn't know color until they went to school and others told them. Absolutely. And, I see that with Gabriel. They just love each other. They hug each other. They're happy. It definitely does start early on. Okay. So, all right. Let's, I highlight this because we do have a lot of folks that probably know people who are engaged in protesting. And it's something, just shoot them a text, email them, call them, and just say, look, these are the things you want to do. Protect your eyes, protect your nose, and protect your mouth. The other thing too is you can have the megaphones still talking within your mask, and it, the volume is created that way. There's definitely a lot of stuff that that we can do. But again, it also does come down to actively voting. So that being what it is, I also want to highlight some additional details. So separate from the protesting. And I know we have a community of love. We have a community that is very open-minded, encouraging. And I appreciate that for each of you. This is the time for us to love each other more, be more understanding, be more open-minded. Everybody is driven by different factors, but at the end of the day, it is absolutely critical that we try to see and seek and maintain equality and justice for all here in our communities. Darlene says we need to be the change for our communities. So much can be done from our home, contact representatives, and also you can get involved in campaigns. Voting is ultimately going to be what makes some of the greater changes, because then we can get legislators to actively make changes. And so there are, this is election season, and a lot of the individuals who are feeling idle or frustrated, and like us, we're not going out to actively walk. There's a whole lot of stuff we can do. You can donate time, money, there's a lot. So I'm just going to put that out there. Hopefully that encourages all of you. And we totally can do that. And so I'm totally one of those people. I get organized if I get inspired. And this is definitely something that, we all have an obligation. And Monica says, unfortunately, not all parents teach their children to love people and not see color. There are actually some really great books of inclusion. And so I can post a few of those that we have for Gabriel that, highlights just, we have a global community. Okay. So let's talk about this. We're in the beginning of the chats about college football, what's going to happen there. We're already seeing football players testing positive. So Marshall there was a football player, actually 2 players and a coach who've tested positive, or an employee for the team. All 3 are asymptomatic. All 3 are in quarantine. As I mentioned, the Oklahoma State linebacker who was out protesting, he's tested positive. No sort of notation as to his symptoms, so I don't know that detail. And then the other thing that I have to highlight is that there's clinical research that came out about potential predictive biomarkers. We saw that with the children, the cases where the children were having the inflammatory syndrome. They started to identify and isolate biomarkers. Well, there are a multitude of proteins in the blood of the infected COVID-19 patients that they've identified are trends across the board. So they're starting to identify particularly 3 proteins. They're linked to the interleukin IL-6. This is a big inflammatory one. This is a big one that can turn on that cytokine storm. That's what tends to be the most troubling and problematic of those proteins. So I think we're going to see more of that. That might be also a screening method where you can do a blood serum and it could show up some of these biomarkers, just like we do diagnostic tests to see if there are markers in your blood. To the note of blood and infusions, Gilead, the manufacturer of the remdesivir, they're looking at ways to create additional uses of their product that are more user-friendly. So right now, the only way to get remdesivir is through an IV infusion. They're looking at taking the same IV infusion and using that in nebulizers, either in the hospital or outpatient settings. Mostly it's going to be inpatient right now to be monitored. But the other thing they're looking at is inhaling a dry powder. I just think like, oh God, cocaine, right? Like what in the world are they doing with a dry powder? Who's going to do that? But they're looking at how they can quickly manufacture also this and disperse it because of the growing need. And we're looking at Brazil growing need, Russia growing need. The US continues to grow. So that is very interesting. And just a last note of news, any of you Amazon supporters, I'm still in this weird protesting with Amazon. I'm so frustrated with them. They have cut back on all of the partner programs. So I'm a partner, all the links I give to all of you, it's so small anyway. It's a small little commission, but it helps us. So, it's what helps me finance our shows. They've cut our commission by like 70 to 80% in some cases. Mine is about a 73% cut, and I've noticed it already for last month. It took place last month. They're planning to help support the businesses that sell in Amazon. They usually have the Amazon Prime in July. I've covered it in the past, like 2 years ago. They are planning to roll out on June 22nd. They're not calling it Amazon Prime Day. They're going to call it the biggest sale in the sky. And I'm unclear if it's going to be one day or multiple days, but I have several vendors that I work with. I just found out about this morning. I've just emailed all of them saying, hey, I don't know if you guys have seen this, if you're going to participate, but stay tuned. If I do have some of the brands that I reference and recommend, like Effisoy, it'll be a way for you to get some additional savings from those brands. So just FYI, if you do have any big ticket items or things that you're considering buying on Amazon, you might want to wait until June 22nd because you might get an additional savings. So we'll see. Okay, let's see. That's the kind of news right now. I'm waiting for more info from the CDC. I haven't seen that yet. But I want to highlight today's video is to specifically kind of dig into a product that it's called My Community, and it's by a brand called Host Defense. This is doctor created. This particular liquid, this also comes in capsule, but I just love the liquid. The dropper liquids, I feel like there's just easy integration. And I take a bit of pills, so I kind of like to change it up with like little tabs I dissolve or liquids. But My Community is a blend of 15 different mushroom species. that are going to bolster and support your immune defense. And so unlike kind of the herbals, there are 17 potent blends of highly beneficial mushrooms and fungi, if you will. They're all organic. They're all grown in here in the US. So they are going to contain the inner part of the mushroom. They're going to contain the fruit bodies. And basically, they create balance. They create modulation of your immune system. They have enzymes, prebiotics, antioxidants within them that are going to support intracellular and extracellular immune strength. So this just naturally bolsters, supports, regulates, and modulates your immune system. All four things we want. You know, if you are dealing with an autoimmune disorder, you want mushrooms that are going to help. You want mushrooms, and mushrooms will help you modulate and regulate your immune system. And so that's really critical. Let's see, I almost bought that yesterday. Now I know more about it. Oh yeah. So aren't mushrooms fungus? So yes, but they are a healthy fungus, and they're supportive of our microbiome, all of parts of our microbiome. So our skin, our oral microbiome, our eye microbiome, you know, we have our internal interstitial mucosal related microbiome, our gut microbiome. It encourages resistance. So the thing is, when we take these mushrooms, these mushrooms have the ability to help our cells and our immune system resist these assailants. So a virus, another fungus, a bacteria. It helps our body to respond better. And so I'm going to notate some of the noteworthy mushrooms, and I have to have my readers on because this list is so small I can't even read it. So let me tell you what's in here. So we have maitake and chaga. So maitake is a really common one. Chaga, you guys know I love chaga. Chaga is my favorite. It has the highest antioxidant value of any natural occurring substance. Antioxidants at this higher level are very supportive of reducing free radical damage. It is part of the anti-aging process. So if you just want to bolster and support your cells and keep them youthful, chaga can do that. Reishi, you guys know I drink my Rebel with some of my reishi mushroom. Reishi is very good as an immune modulator. It's immune supportive. It's very powerful at boosting also the immune response when it is lacking, but it won't fire it up and charge it up. It also has oyster mushroom. Those I tend to find they're hard for me to eat, so I'd rather supplement with a liquid or capsule. It has cordyceps. Cordyceps is one of my favorite mushrooms that is very good for deep cellular immune strengthening. Cordyceps is something that I would put in the routine of any of my patients that have Epstein-Barr or any type of recurring herpes-related viruses like shingles or, you know, cold sores, genital herpes, or any type of wounds, poxy-related wounds on the skin. Also, it has birch polypore. Birch, you know, one of the things that a lot of these mushrooms, and just looking at how these mushrooms are grown, a lot of these mushrooms grow on the bark or on trees. And there's a critical element. If you guys notate some of my past videos, I've talked a lot about how there's like, there are the what do we call it? The extract. So, you know, on the outside of a tree, we have the bark. So I have a lot of herbals, I call them herbals, that use the bark extract of like pine or certain trees. Well, you have that plus this fungus, the mushroom. And the mushroom with that bark itself is very potent. It's almost like a double whammy. And you can, so this is ingestible. So this is like, I mean, I take this all the time. I literally, and I'll show you guys, it's a potent herbal, but I'll put it in my mouth and then I'll just take my tea. It's not overwhelming. It's not like when I take astragalus or like valerian or my kava. It's not bad, but definitely you want to quickly kind of put it down the hatch. I don't mix a lot of my herbals with any type of smoothies or juices. I don't like to adulterate them that way. I have cordyceps, I have reishi, I have chaga powder. I'll put those in, but because we've got so much in this, it's good. I do that blend. It also has turkey tail. So turkey tail is something that is really, really powerful. It has some anti-cancer properties. It's very cellular protective. It also has Messina. It has Royal Sun, Blase. There's so many different mushroom blends in here. Ones that you haven't heard, like there's a mushroom called Artis conch. Very bizarre name. And then it's called Amadao. We also have shiitake in here. Let me see if I've missed anything. Eno, Kitake, let's see, split gill, polypore. That's another one. I've got reishi, maitake, Oregon, Ganoderma. So these all are meant to support and bolster your immune system. And it becomes a comprehensive immune response or immune supportive. Let me go back to YouTube. Sorry. Okay. Let's see. There was a question I had. Should we be taking immune boosting herbs with autoimmune disorder? So Violet, that's an excellent question. And there are some herbs that are intuitive, meaning, or your body is intuitive with herbs. There are some that modulate and regulate. And those have been the ones that I've been covering, where there are others that will just boost your immune system. So there's different roles. There's regulation, modulation, support, and boosting. Now, sometimes marketing will, use words or whatnot. And again, there's no sort of regulation to the marketing of any of our products that we have on the market. But the role mushrooms play is undeniable in a multitude of health benefits. And so if you are looking to improve your health, you need to have mushrooms in your diet. For sure, eat them. Like Brian hates mushrooms, and I chop them up and I throw them in. Most of the time he doesn't even know he's eating them. He thinks they're onions. But I put mushrooms in everything. I grew up eating mushrooms. But mushrooms are wonderful. Portobello you can do a lot with. Vegans will use portobello as like a steak. Oh, so good with balsamic. And so there's a lot of ways to consume them. But the mushrooms are more modulating and regulating than they are boosting, if that makes sense. So they're more of a bolstering support, meaning they're protective. They limit and minimize the cellular damage. It is critical that if you are dealing with any type of joint pain, fatigue, swelling, and even any type of inflammatory response, mushrooms have to be in that blend. Taryn says, I buy oyster mushrooms and other mushrooms to substitute meat. They are delicious. You can do a lot with them. You can saute them. You can eat them raw. Does it have a nasty taste? So this, honestly, it's not herbal. There is, let me see. There is, let's see, 1 milliliter. So usually this would be about 46 drops. So this is a milliliter, about as much as you can this is a max kind of quantity. That's how much I take. It's not overwhelming. Like I have some that I'm like, whoa, this is not like that. But you saw me take it and then quickly I swallow, and there's nothing is left in my mouth. Like I'm not tasting it. I don't feel like it's gotten in between my teeth and I'm like, oh my God, it's awful. Or I have to eat something. So it's tolerable. I also have the capsules. I don't think they're as easily accessible. Actually, hold on. Let me see. I have my whole thing here. Yeah, here it is. They come in capsules too. So this is what also you can grab. I'll post this as well. We do the liquid and the capsules. 2 capsules is the serving size. The same blend that you find in the liquid is in that. I'll give you guys an insider scoop. We did a photo shoot yesterday. I have my 10,000. I thought I hit 10,000 followers on Instagram. And then I dipped by like 15 people because I did a post, it was, I didn't realize it until after the fact because I'm just not online. I do you guys, and then I'm with Gabriel for the rest of the day, and then I just do research for our show. So I'm minimally accessible in terms of what all is going on. So I missed the fact it was Blackout Friday until like midday. But I think that's one of the reasons why I had my thing go down. But I have my 10K photo. We did a photo shoot in our little pool. We cleaned our pool. We filled it up yesterday. Before Gabriel swim, I got in there and we did our photo shoot. So you guys will see that when it hits. So if you guys aren't following me on Instagram, please do. I'd love to get up to 10,000 again. The woes of social media. So I am definitely not a social media addict, and it's better as a parent for me. I can't be on my phone all the time. Okay, so K Diddy 44. I'm going to try this. My kinesiologist years ago suggested to not eat fungi. I'm curious. I wonder why. Moz Girl 26. I have really bad restless leg syndrome. Can I take magnesium every day? Yes, please do. Please take magnesium every day. All of you. It's so good for you. Let's see. Christine says, love cilantro, poor cilantro haters. Says it tastes like soap. Wonder if that's a blood type thing. Possibly. It's funny. I do know blood typing is it's only, to be honest with you, I use it when I know specifically if somebody generationally has had the same blood type. A lot of my folks that I work with that have been born abroad and their whole families lived in like the same town or city, and then they come over here, I use it more specifically in those cases, but it is highly beneficial. I mean, our food, and it's not just our food, it's our medication, it's our supplements, those have chemistry, and then they meet our blood chemistry. Either it's happy or it's not, and we have a war, and that can make and exacerbate things differently. Okay, so Dwayne says, I finally chopped mushrooms and put in meatloaf, helps make the meatloaf moist. Yeah, it's very true. You can even caramelize them. Takes a while. I do that like I do my shallots. Oh, so good. So just like a little ghee, and then I simmer them, and then I'll add turmeric. I also find that they're spongy, so they'll absorb any herbs that you put in. So you can put in turmeric, ginger, powder or fresh. It'll absorb that. It gives additional flavor. And then when you have like that little bit of meatloaf that has it, you get like another flavor profile. It's pretty yummy. I can't smell UC. I drink lots of valerian. Valerian's great. Yeah, valerian is quite stinky. I have a valerian tea. But the licorice, it's challenging. They often blend licorice a lot with valerian. Okay, so Rowan says, is it better to take mushrooms individually to target their individual benefits, or take a supplement with lower doses of multiple? Excellent question. So if you want full-fledged comprehensive, you can take a blend. I will tell you that the ones that I have added in my regimen, lion's mane, chaga, reishi, and then maitake. And reishi, I usually get it in my Rebel. The chaga, it's a powder I usually use, and same with lion's mane. So we did mommy cookies on Monday. Was it Monday? Yeah. So today's Wednesday. Yeah. So Monday. We did that. And yesterday we made alphabet cookies. I have a really crazy recipe that I used. It had me use, they taste great. They're like a really nice sugar cookie. I might actually use these to make our holiday sugar cookies. But it was all about the fine motor skills for Gabriel. So we are all in the pre-writing phase. So it's all about squishing and mushing and doing things with his fingers. And because of that, it called for 3 boiled hard-boiled egg yolks. And so I had to hard boil 3 eggs. Usually I boil eggs often. I don't eat them all the time, but definitely it's one of my breakfast sources. And it had me add that to the sugar, and then he mixed it up, and it was really great. And then we had to mix up the butter. So I had to chop up butter with I used traditional flour. It was like an organic flour, but usually I do almond. I just wasn't sure with the texture, but I know I could make these healthier. Okay, so yeah, chaga and lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps is another one. Cordyceps is in my adrenal supportive herb. So like how I kind of do it is I will use different, I kind of have a sense, and I usually will write down to like my milligrams on a daily basis. Some I want to have people hit 500 or 1,000 milligrams. It kind of depends. The challenge here, at least on this, it doesn't notate the dosage. Let's see on the box here. Okay, so like on the supplement fact on the box of the capsule, it actually will notate like chaga is 148 milligrams. So that's the highest. The lowest it'll have split gill polypore 12 milligrams. So I'm sure this probably categorizes this as well. So that's helpful. Okay, so let's see. Dwayne had 2 bouts of strep and taking 10,000 IU D3. D3 tested 63.25. Being 63, should I try to get it higher? Yes, you can go higher. Optimal, really, ideally, is anything above 84. I like to have people in the 90, 100 range. Your doctors will freak out, if they test you and it comes back like 102. Like, oh my God, you're toxic. That's totally false. CAR 69Z. What is good to get mucus out of your stomach? I took OTC for a couple days, which I had not done in years. And now my stomach is upset. Notice mucus in my movement. So the mucus more than likely isn't from your stomach. It could very well be digestive, like in the digestive tract. I would use aloe, and then I would consume ginger tea or chop up fresh ginger and consume the ginger. Chop it up, boil it, and then munch on what's left after the boil. Ginger is really good for getting rid of mucus. I like that. And is very calming. So ginger, and then follow with aloe vera. Aloe vera, for any of you who have GERD, any type of gastro stuff, aloe vera is great for just calming heat. And so if you think of like inflammation, I always see red, inflammation is red. Aloe vera is like this cooling, icy blue, and it just calms it down. Really good stuff. Love, love, love. 4-sigmatic coffee with mushrooms. It is quite delicious. I love that too. Hey Lori, can you use all the herbs powders at once? I ordered them from Reserve. Yes, you actually can. Reserve is the company that I use. Yeah, you can. We bake with them, or I throw them in our smoothies. Gabriel's totally abandoned smoothies. What to take for poison ivy on skin? I would do aloe vera, chamomile, do chamomile tea, and just the tea, do like a little brew, take the tea bag and put it on the skin. Wear gloves while you're doing it because there's transmission. And then calendula cream would be really good for that. I have postnasal, so I have a lot of drainage. So Moz Girl, one of the things, the sinuses, you're doing your saline spray, cleaning up your oral microbiota, because it might be allergy related. That's what mine tends to be at this time. I'm almost done. We're like a week or two away from being clear until like middle of August, when goldenrod goes into I think it's really September here. Goldenrod's really annoying. It just irritates the heck out of my eyes, and we have it all over the backyard. I pull it up and it's awful. So for sinus drainage, definitely ginger tea, turmeric, saline spray, that'll help. You might have food allergies too if you have that consistently or notice after certain foods. Okay, so all right, let's see. I'm trying to see if you guys have any questions. Okay, so Donna. Thank you for the cue. That's helpful. Dr. Melissa, what is a healthy thyroid range and or optimal number? So it depends on a lot of variables, but there are a multitude of tests that we undergo. I actually have a free thyroid webinar. Actually, I'm going to post that right now. Hold on. Let me go to my, let's see. I'm going to send you guys all the link in the chat box below. Webinars. I have a thyroid webinar. Actually, I have two of them. I have a thyroid and I have a lymph. They're free webinars. I am working on the other webinar for female hormones. Okay, so if you click on that, so down below in the chat box, the live chat box, and for any of you on the replay, hit the live chat box option. You can see I posted the link. You can, I would encourage you to take my thyroid webinar. I break out the tests and it's all visual. So I use a particular platform where I have visuals. It's slide presentation. I think you'll find that helpful. So let's see. Okay, what was oral probiotic you recommended a few weeks ago? Oral probio is what I recommend. There are a few others that are very powerful, but they have the salivarius that we have in our mouth. And in fact, when we are deficient in the healthy probiotic and the other, when we're deficient in that healthy bacteria, we actually have an overwhelming abundance of the bacteria that causes dental cavities. And so like I hear friends and family with kids that have that, and like the quick adjustment, because kids are generally eating the same food. It's their oral probiotic, their oral microbiota that's different. And a lot of that comes from our parents, especially if they were born vaginally or cesarean. That's a big factor. But the thing that you want to do is you want to add oral probiotic, and that'll clear up your dental caries. It doesn't make them go away. That's a whole nother process, but it does minimize that bacteria from being so overwhelming. It also minimizes bacteria along the gum line. So if any of you have like, you know, loose teeth or gums that are inflamed, or, you know, when you get the scaling, the reading, you know, you're in the 4, 5, 6 plus category, that can really make a change as well. Okay, so yes, so please, I love that. Thanks, Jenny. Please give me a thumbs up if you like this content. Instagram, the link is over on YouTube. Again, because I've dipped down below 10,000, I can't swipe up. I was trying to we were trying to figure out how to get that when we did hit 10,000. So, but you know, it was one of those things I told Brian, I'm like, oh my gosh, I did this one like a little bit more outside of my wheelhouse. It was, you know, much more kind of politically oriented, not politically, but like socially oriented post, and I lost like 20 people. And Brian's like, those aren't people you want. And I know that's right. It's still kind of offensive. Like, what the world? Monica, thank you so much. 1999. And I love her. I love her little dancing. You're amazing. He's so cute. And I love your face. You're wearing a face mask. So bravo for promoting that. So, but at any rate, you know, I just want to remind everybody, you know, we're all in this together. We're in this pandemic together. We're on this planet together. We have to live together in a cohesive way. And, you know, the things that bring us together and make us more similar are so much more abundant than things that make us different. So I just want to, that's going to be my concluding message for all of you today. And, you know, just for all of you who are tuned into energy, just let's release good, positive energy, lots of healing, lots of promotive healing, you know, socially, economically. And, you know, ultimately, we're the light in our lives and the light of our families' lives. And so just be a shining light of example of love, acceptance, and peace. All right. Cupcake paper. Thank you. $1.99. Do a show on receding gums and teeth. Absolutely. Let's see. Oops. Sorry about that. My phone's ringing. Is it possible to regenerate the thyroid? Depends on what's going on, what situation it was in. Yes, all Instagram IG numbers fluctuate all the time. Yes, it totally. It's been a slog to get up to 10,000. It's okay. It's kind of funny. It's a lot harder than it was with YouTube. When we did that live show of counting down to 200,000, we're like, yay, we did 200,000. And then it dropped by like 1 and then it went up again. But YouTube's a lot easier to grow. But I will say, you know, the live show, people haven't loved it, and we've lost thousands of followers on YouTube. And it is what it is. I don't, believe me, I don't lose sleep over it. I was just kind of irritated. Like, how can you not support that? But there's also a lot of bots, and there's a lot of people that follow with hopes of getting followed. I don't do that. I just try and really promote education as much as I can. So, yeah, so definitely follow me on Instagram. It's our handle is Natural Health Resources. All right, Instagram, see you tomorrow. Let's see. Okay, I have to figure out how to save. Instagram's changed a little bit. Okay, so I think it did save it. I hope it did save it. Let's see, did it go? I don't know. We'll find out. It cut out. Okay, so I updated, and it's been just a glitch since then. All right, friends. So stay tuned for tomorrow. I look forward to seeing you all. Tomorrow is Thursday, and then Friday we'll do our live Q&A. So definitely save your questions. I will make sure we answer them. And Christine says it's slow for Instagram to put your star on and swipe up. Yeah, it's very slow. I appreciate that, Christine. I want immediate gratification. I want instant, just like everybody else. All right, you guys. Thanks again, Pat, for moderating. And I hope you and the kitties are well today. And thanks again, everybody. Have a great day. I will see you tomorrow. Bye. Peace, love, and happiness.